numbers of very wealthy families who controlled history, I suppose, that were the ruling classes, and at that time in history, it was more likely that if one person was eliminated, that it would change the course of history. But today, the multinational corporations are such huge bureaucratic institutions that... Can you see me still, Anthony? Hey, Carl? Can you still hear me? Carl? The screen went up.
I got you.
Carl, can you hear me? Pardon?
Everything's going well.
Is everything okay?
Yes.
Why'd you type in
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He did.
Keep going. As I say, is that if you eliminate, they actually have the multinational corporations are really like these giant bureaucracies with thousands of people involved. There's shareholders and stockbrokers and executives and managers. And if one person is eliminated, I mean, they're expendable and they're interchangeable. So, in other words, I don't think that that any individual is that important to a multinational corporation in the course that it's taking. For example, if the CEO of Esso woke up one morning and had an epiphany and decided that he was going to pursue policies of renewable energy, and if that resulted in the prices of their shares dropping, he would immediately he'd be fired and lose his job. And when you look at corporate policies, they don't reflect any concern for life either. The examples are endless. Shell Oil on the Niger Peninsula, Glasgow in South Africa, fighting the generic use of AIDS drugs, Nike and all the other manufacturing corporations that are pushing for free trade agendas so they can relocate to so-called third world countries where they can pay women below living wage standards and avoid environmental laws. They all reflect a total disregard for human life. So this is my argument for why I think that on the militant level that we should be focusing on property destruction. And I don't think that property destruction can be considered an act of violence. Certainly any buildings, machinery, that are part and parcel of a repressive apparatus, an oppressive apparatus, that is an act of liberation to cause damage to that sort of thing. And so I think that it's becoming more and more common within the anarchist communities to differentiate between the violence. Well, to argue that property damage is not an act of violence, but it's still quite common in the mainstream media to associate violence with property destruction as well as attacks against individuals. Well, the situation is urgent today. People have been doomsday sayers for generations, but it used to be that the doomsday sayers were more marginalized and the lunatic fringe, at least that's what they would be portrayed as, whereas today, more and more mainstream scientists are saying that if we don't do something to change our value system and the system of our capitalistic system, that life on this planet will no longer exist as we know it. So the system is becoming urgent. A few years ago, the United Nations has commissioned a number of studies, but a few years ago, they commissioned 1,500 scientists of the world's most renowned climatologists to study the effect of global warming on the planet, and they came back with results, they came back with the conclusion that humans are using more than half of the resources on the planet for our own human consumption. And they concluded that the effects of global warming are cataclysmic. Richard Leakey, one of the world's most renowned paleoanthropologists, has likened the rate of species extinction today as akin to the sixth extinction. 75 species became extinct over a 300-year period from 1600 to 1900. From 1900 to 1980, another 75 species became extinct. The most conservative estimates say that at least 25,000 species have become extinct since 1980, and that's very conservative. And of course, thermonuclear war has become a real back burner issue for most social activists, but it is still one of the biggest and most clear dangers to life on the planet today. Even it's just become almost desensitized to it since the threat of nuclear war has been around for so long. So what do we do about it? We can't just go out there blowing things up. I mean, we have to be effective. There's no point in a few people going to jail forever if their actions aren't really the most effective thing to do. Back in the early 80s, there were 5 of us, and we decided to start a guerrilla group, an urban guerrilla group. We modeled ourselves after guerrilla groups at that time from Western Europe and from North America. These guerrilla groups had in turn modeled themselves after the liberation movement in Africa and South America. These were high-tech, underground guerrilla groups that were Marxist socialist in terms of their politics. We differed from them politically in that we had come out of a feminist tradition, that we had been involved in the prison abolition movement, that we were anarchists, and also that we had been involved with the American Indian movement. There have been some American Indian movement activists who've been arrested in Vancouver, so we were fortunate enough to have elders and American Indian movement activists stay in our house for several years. And they taught us, through our involvement with them, we came to reject materialism and reject the whole concept that progress and technology and science were unquestionable truths. So that's where we differed from other guerrilla groups. We developed a political analysis of Canada's role economically on the global level as being a supplier of natural resources. So our first action, we decided to blow up a substation, which was part of the Chikai-Dunsmuir line. This was part of a 10-year plan by the BC government at the time to build a series of mega projects which would create a publicly funded infrastructure for private industry to exploit the natural resources of BC. The Chikai-Dunsmuir transmission line was a $1 billion transmission line which would allow for electricity to be generated on the mainland, brought underground under the George Strait in order to facilitate the expansion of the pulp and paper industry on Vancouver Island. There were several criteria for us targeting the Chikai-Dunsmuir line, and these criteria we also applied to other actions, and I think that they're still relevant today if people are thinking about what they want to target. One of them was that we decided that we would only target installations or buildings or issues in which there had already been a social movement or there had already developed a protest movement around that issue, so that when we did act, that people would understand why. And in this case, the Chikai-Dunsmuir Alliance had been organizing people for quite some time to oppose the Chikai-Dunsmuir transmission line. The other criteria was that we didn't want to act prematurely or usurp the popular struggle. So in this case, the Chikai-Dunsmuir Alliance had used every legal means available to try to prevent the Chikai-Dunsmuir line from being constructed. They had petitioned the government, they had written letters, they had organized demonstrations, they engaged in civil disobedience, they pulled surveyor stakes out of the right-of-way, they had blockaded the bulldozers, but in the end, the Chikai-Dunsmuir line was almost completed and was about to be electrified, so we decided that that was the right time. So we blew up 4 transformers in the Dunsmuir substation and an oil pumping station that was in that substation as well. And it was successful on a sort of logistic level because another criteria was that we didn't want to do symbolic actions. We wanted to